Okay, so this video is going to take you through the introduction of the demo for passing arguments with methods, and you're going to see why we need to do that, and then we're going to learn how to do that, and so how to write code for that. So as we're looking at, you should have the chapter 5 notes, passing arguments intro paper in front of you so you can take notes. And so as we look at this particular program here, we see that the user is asked for the enter the radius of a particular circle. And of course, double radius is a declaration, so there's a memory location that's reserved by the computer, by the compiler, and it names it radius. And so in there, let's say that the user typed 7.5, then that user input would be stored inside this particular variable or storage location. Now, one of the reasons why we use other methods in addition to the main method is one of the things we want to clear up, make the main method not so cluttered. And also, if you look at math, your teachers should be teaching you that if you have a problem, especially a big problem that you're trying to solve, a lot of times breaking that problem down into smaller pieces or parts helps you to solve that problem better. So if we look back at the region alignment code, you'll see how in the main method all we have is just a couple of method calls, and it's fairly simple, it's not cluttered. But imagine that you put all this code down here inside the main method, and so that would then not be as efficient because it would clutter up or kind of crowd the space in the main method body. And so instead the programmer then sets up and breaks it up into different pieces and makes it more efficient, makes it easier to work with. And so what we're doing here on this page is we're calling area. So the area method, we want the area method to do the calculation of the area of the circle. And so of course the area method is sitting there and waiting to be called. And so we write a line of code that says, it calls area. And so the compiler then goes to line 16 and it invokes the area method. And so the area method does its performance. So it multiplies the radius times itself, and so you get pi r squared. And then of course that calculation, then it stores the whatever that is in here and stores the result of that calculation. It stores it in area, and then it's called or printed, displayed here. Alright, so that's the way it looks like it should work, and everything should be hunky-dory and great and wonderful. So what we do then is we kind of, to demonstrate things, we're going to go to JGrasp and take a look at this exact code, and we're going to compile it and see if we can run it. But as you can see, it says you can't find the error in line 18. So it's can't find the radius that's been declared and assigned. It can't find it. Well, so why is that? And so if we go back to this paper, then we see then that we have, oh, I shouldn't have deleted that stuff there. And so what happens is that when it's trying to call radius, the problem is we have a block of code here. That's the body of the main method. And this radius variable is a storage location in a specific area of the computer memory that is kind of, in a sense, has a wall around it. All right, and people can't see through that wall, or other methods can't see through this wall. So there's a section that any variable that is declared within this method body is going to be in this section. And so this, so when it's trying to call radius, it can't actually see it. And so we say then that the radius here is actually, this variable call is out of scope, and this is something you should write on your notes. This, in fact, the whole area body is out of scope of the radius variable over here. Now, a good definition of scope is, one of the students said, is field of vision, which is a great idea. The field of vision for radius actually is, it's declared here. Really, technically, its field of vision is anywhere from here to the end of this method. So it's just in here. So the thing is that area is out of the field of vision. So the variable radius cannot be seen, or it can't see in the area method. And so a variable call. So this is what we want to write then on your paper. And I'm going to delete that. Okay, here's what we want to write on our notes. Is write down, let's see, you can't call a variable that has been declared in another method or block of code. So we just demonstrated that. And so the declaration, of course, is here. Radius is declared inside the main method, inside this block of code, in this room, in this section of the computer memory. You can't call a variable that has been declared in another. So here you are sitting here, and it's been declared in another method, so you can't call it. And so what's the fix? And so the fix is this, we want to say the value of radius, which is, of course, 7.5 in this case, must be passed. And what we'll do is we'll continue here. Must be passed to the area method through the method call. So in order for the 7.5 to be used to calculate the area, in order for the area method to be able to use 7.5, this value of this variable must be passed through the method call to the area method. And we could say this must be passed to the area method through the method call to the method header. All right, so that's kind of the answer to this whole thing. We're going to show that. And so we go in here, and we're going to go down to the bottom, or the second half of this line of this paper, and show what we're going to do. And we're going to write down a few more notes. And so in here, what we want to do is, after radius has been declared, and let me do one thing here first. I'm going to take this, bring it down here, which is not the way to do it, And so here it is. Now, what we're going to do then is inside the in the method call, we're going to type radius. So radius is, of course, then called a variable call. So we put a variable call inside of the parentheses of the method call. Now, this, what's inside the method call's parenthesis is called an argument. So that's something you need to write down. This is an argument. And so, that's what that is inside the parentheses. Now, radius itself is a variable call. It's calling for the variable radius, the value of the variable radius, which, of course, is 7.5. So really, what's happening is the compiler is going to pass the value of radius. In other words, it's going to pass the value of, or pass 7.5 to the method header, which is what we said we have to do. And so we say that the argument then is passed to the other method. Now, if you think about passing football, when the football is passed or softball is passed, what happens to that ball? Well, it's got to get caught. And so it's got to be caught and stored. And so what happens is we store things, of course, in what kinds of objects in Java? And you should be able to answer variables. Well, we need a variable to store the 7.5 that's being passed so that the method can catch it. And so in order to declare, we have to declare a variable. In other words, reserve a memory location. So we're going to go double. And then the name of the variable that we're going to create or reserve, we can name it whatever you want. It could be radius, but let's not. It could be radius, or typically in these types of situations, we'd use a shorter name. So rad could be one. You could use R, because R for radius. Let's use rad in this case. And so when the compiler sees double rad, it creates, or it reserves a memory location in a different section of the computer memory, names it rad. And see, that's why we could call it radius if we wanted to, because it's in a different section of the computer memory where they can't see each other. So that would not be an issue. But we try to keep those a little separate. And so we're going to name it rad. And then that 7.5 is being passed, and it's going to be caught by rad, and of course it's stored in there. So 7.5 is now in there. Now, of course, this has to have a name. We have to give what's inside the parentheses a name. Of course, it's a declaration, but the word rad is the name of a parameter variable. So the argument is passed to the method header and becomes a parameter. It's stored in the parameter variable. It's in the storage location. Its name is rad. All right, so this is a parameter variable. And you will be expected to know arguments and parameter variables and things like that. And you're expected to know that when the compiler gets to this method header, it's going to reserve a memory location named rad. And it's going to store the argument being passed. This is a story that you need to understand and recognize very easily, or clearly. And so what we have to change here then is, instead of calling radius, we're going to call the variable rad. So now this, of course, is in scope to that variable. Where it was out of scope to radius, it's in scope to rad. And so now we're going to take the compiler will take 7.5 multiplied by 7.5 multiplied by 3.14 and get whatever the area is and display that in the next line down. All right, so that's how you pass arguments from one method to another. And we'll learn another method of passing data on our next class.